remember. Sun, that's what it's called. Isn't it nice when it comes out and reminds you what it's all about? It's one of the things that keeps me going in the garden. When you get a day like this, you just want to get out there. And another thing that keeps me going is new varieties that come out to freshen up my style of gardening. I've never been a fan, really, of Nemesia, stringy sort of bedding plant. Passes over very quickly and it's been and gone and done it then. But this new variety, called Sundrops, is, I reckon, really worth looking at. It's the Bedding Plant Association's Plant of the Year. It's won a Select Gold medal, and it's easy to see why if you look at the individual plants. These have been brought on early, but you can see by the amount of bud that's there, it's going to flower from May to September. Wonderful in containers and in hanging baskets, and you'll find them in your garden centre in trays like this now, just ready for potting up into something a bit bigger. I'd give it a go and turn your garden into a colourful patchwork this summer. On this week's programme, wildflower expert Jenny Steele shows me how to make a meadow for colour this summer. Pippa Greenwood returns to her organic kitchen garden. And Gay Search has an idea to keep you busy this weekend, how to transform a shady passageway. Now it's time for the last of Stephen Lacey's visits to Beth Chatto's garden. This week, he looks at her water garden.
Beth Chatto's garden near Colchester is in one of the driest parts of Britain, but again by understanding and exploiting the nature of her soil and lie of land, she's been able to carve out an unexpectedly luxuriant feature, a chain of pools, streams and moisture-loving plants. In early May, there are flashes of flower colour between the expanding foliage. By midsummer, everything's at its lushest. By September, the tints have matured.
Beth, in this part of the garden you were facing a very different sort of challenge, weren't you?
Well, this was a soggy, boggy hollow. It's spring-fed. The farmland on either side it receives the rain, is the water-bearing land. It goes through the gravel until it reaches this low point in the landscape where it is the natural drainage area. But once I made up my mind that I was going to make a water garden here, I made 2 dams initially. And it was several years before we decided that we'd flood a lot more rubbishy weeds and make another. And so now we have 4.
It's nice to have open water and not fill it too much with plants, isn't it?
Well, yes. I mean, I think the classic theory is about sort of 1/3 plants to 2/3 water, isn't it?
Do you plan the planting first and foremost as a contrast of shapes and forms?
Yes, I do, gradually building up a framework.
But presumably you're always editing the planting, aren't you? Especially with the waterside plants growing so quickly.
Well, yes. I mean, over the years, when you first put these things in, there's room for smaller things, but you can't cope with too fussy planting in an area this size.
No, it makes a nice simple picture.
Well, it does. I mean, simplicity, I think, ultimately, is the answer in gardening, is, you know, what one tries to aim at, an appearance of simplicity anyway.
It's a nice composition of leaf shapes.
Yes, lots of contrast, isn't there, here, which I think is so important once the flowers have gone. But meantime, I think this is a nice form of pontidaria called lancifolia. As you can see, it has spear-shaped leaves instead of the much rounder cordate leaves.
And they're quite good for giving you flowers late on, aren't they?
Yes, they do.
Keep the colour going.
Yes, blue coming in there, sort of August time, August, September.
With the Xanthodeskian extra.
Yes, that's hidden a bit, but it's coming and it's gradually increasing. In the very cold winters, we lost them even in the water if leaves became mushy too soon in the early winter.
But on the whole, they've got more chance of surviving underwater.
Oh, they have.
They?
Yes, they have.
Yeah. And we're getting wafts of scent from this valerian.
This is the mountain valerian. We brought it home many years ago from Switzerland, from the high Alps, where it looks lovely. But I've never seen it growing so high here.
Yeah, it's very good.
I think this wet June we've had has suited it very well. Now, just round the corner here, Stephen, is an example of what we were talking about, of places getting overrun. Here, the gunnera, until this year, filled to the corner there. And I decided to take half of it out, it already is more than enough, and to plant this willow here. This is a twisty willow. And of course, it looks very insignificant at the moment. But I'm looking forward to it going up into the sky, making a great beautiful fan-like shape, especially in the winter, when the gardener vanishes altogether, to make a feature here.
Yeah, I think we forget the sky is a place to be planted too, isn't it?
Well, yes, it's very easy. You just think of planting on the ground, but it's easy enough to get colour on the ground and patterns. But I think the sky is just as important, and to have a variety of shapes and textures.
I mean, it's a tremendous composition of silhouettes across there. I mean, they're used just like a church tower, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is.
Reflecting in the water.
It is, and I'm quite proud of the fact that there was absolutely nothing there but bracken 30 years ago.
Early autumn's rarely a high point in the water garden calendar.
Plenty of shapes here now, aren't there, Beth, holding the garden together?
Yes, still, even though the colour has mostly gone, the colour of flowers, that is, but there are all sorts of tones and shades of foliage here, which, as you know, I really think I almost enjoy best of all in the garden.
Yes. I mean, all these verticals repeated along.
Yes, yes, and so necessary to offset the flat sort of doilies of the water lily leaves.
Yes. And they've kept the interest going right through the summer now, haven't they?
They do, and then with frosts, most of it will disappear around the pond edge. Most wet-loving plants disappear, but there still are enough evergreens and woody things around the pond edge which will carry us through and make us look forward to all these things returning next spring. It's not a public garden. It still is my private garden, which I love to share with gardeners. I'm still not open on Sundays because I do feel I need one day when the garden is totally different. You have to be here to know what it's like, either in the evening when everyone's gone or on Sundays when there's no one here. And then it's my church.
I think solitude's one of the greatest pleasures of being outdoors, and at this time of year there's nowhere I'd rather be than in this strip of bluebell wood that runs alongside my garden. It's a real breath of spring, and it makes me want to do more to conserve our native wildflowers. Jenny Steele is a wildlife gardening specialist who thinks we all have room to do our bit to bring nature to the doorstep. Jenny, isn't it more difficult for gardeners now to get wildflowers into their tidy gardens?
I think lots of gardeners are actually looking to the wild for inspiration now. So there are lots of ways you can grow wildflowers in even a small garden.
How important is it that we do?
I think it's very important. It not only helps to conserve our wildflowers, but it's also excellent for attracting wildlife.
How frightened are people of doing it?
Fairly frightened, although in general, younger people, younger gardeners are becoming very, very keen on growing wildflowers.
Now, I'm lucky. I've got a largish piece of ground here that I've been able to cultivate, and I've got a reservoir of butterflies from the wood and the meadow. What about people who haven't got a large garden? They're in the inner city areas.
This is going to make a fabulous meadow, but you can make a beautiful meadow in a really small area, even maybe in a little half barrel.
It's early May now, and all I've got here is a patch of bare soil. How colourful is it going to be this summer?
The meadow mix that we're going to sow really won't establish well until next year. It'll germinate, but it's not going to look spectacular this year. So in order to get lots of colour in, we're going to sow a mix of annual cornfield flowers.
As well as
the meadow mix. And that'll look good from July through August, right into September.
My soil here is quite heavy. It's fairly clayey. How does that affect what I choose to put in?
It's very important to know what your soil type is, because there's really no point in sowing wildflowers that like a nice dry environment if you've got a damp clay soil.
Well, look what I've done here. The turf's been stripped off. We're lightly rotivated. So is that in a fit state to sow?
Yes, it's looking perfect. It looks as though it's quite low fertility, which is what the wildflowers like.
It's flattering, isn't it? I see. What have we got in here?
Okay, this is the cornfield mix. These black ones are the corn cockles, which are the pink ones. That little one there is cornflower with a fluff on. And then you'll find, in fact, that the poppies, because they're so tiny, are probably right down at the
bottom of the bag.
So we're going to need to mix it up really well.
So how do we mix it? What do we mix it with?
Well, we're obviously going to mix it with our meadow mix, which is mainly grass. We've got 7 species of grass in there and 15 species of wildflower. And we're going to mix them together in this bucket of sand. That'll help us apply the mix nice and finely on the ground.
So just tip them in?
Yep.
And that's the cornfield mix going. Don't want to waste anything. And then the meadow mix. And then mix it all up.
You'll need to sow the seed at a rate of about 4 grams for each square metre, so that's quite thinly. It should start to germinate quite soon, particularly if the weather's reasonable, there's been a little bit of rain maybe, and you're sowing at the right time of year. If it's dry for more than a week or so, you may need to water it.
You out?
Yes.
That's it, I've run out as well. What do we do now?
Now we just want to press the seed in with our feet.
So it's a case of shuffling off all the way down there?
Yes.
And you're shuffling off all the way down. Well, shuffle back a bit in a few weeks' time and tell me what you think of it.
I will.
All right, thank you very much. Mind you, we're not the only ones working hard. Pippa's in her organic kitchen garden, where it's time for vegetable plantings.
This week I'm starting with peas. Picked homegrown and cooked straight away. Their sweetness and tenderness is unbelievable. I've chosen a selection of different varieties, including some peas for podding or shelling and some sugar snap or mange tout types, which means you can eat the whole lot. Now, peas need to go in about 1 inch to 2 inches, so that's 2.5 to 5 centimetres deep. So what I've done is made a flat-bottomed trench at that sort of depth, and then I'm spacing the peas along it so that they're about 4.5 inches apart, and I'm going to put 3 rows across the base of this trench. Again, each row is going to be about 4.5 inches apart. And when you've finished sowing along the whole of the trench, all you need to do is cover it over with soil. And once you've finished that, just firm it down gently with your foot so that the seeds are in really good close contact with the earth. Now, there's only one problem with peas. Birds love them. So it's essential that once you've sown them, you cover them up and protect them in some way. What a lot of people like to use is black cotton tied taut and crisscrossed across the rows. That way the birds will keep off, but they shouldn't get tangled in it. But what I've chosen to use here is a polythene cloche, because that'll do 2 jobs. It'll definitely keep the birds off, and the added advantage is it will also help to keep excess rain off and keep the soil that bit warmer, because it's the combination of cold and wet soil which is likely to cause the peas to get various sort of damping off type diseases and fail completely. Now, I'm going to keep this cloche in position until the shoots of the peas are about 3 inches, 7.5 centimetres tall, and I'll take it off and replace it with pea sticks either side of the rows for support. Next, courgettes and marrows. Steamed, stuffed or stir-fried. I love them. The only problem is that I invariably grow too many. I've chosen a selection of different courgettes and marrows, including Badger Cross, which is superb because it's very resistant to cucumber mosaic virus, and also the courgette Tondo de Niza. The reason I love that one is it's spherical, so it's perfect if you like using courgettes as a stuffed vegetable. Now, because the weather is still so incredibly variable, I've decided to sow these seeds not direct in the ground, as some people do, but into pots. Each seed is going in 1/2 to 1 inch deep on its side, and then harden them off thoroughly before planting them out. Now, for my runner beans, I'm also going to raise them indoors, but this time in trays. Again, I've got a selection of different varieties, including a new dwarf one called Hestia, which has got lovely red and white flowers, and it's so small you can even grow it in a container, and red rum. Now, the reason I've chosen red rum is because it self-pollinates, so if you've had problems with your beans failing to set well, this really could be the answer. Just spacing the seeds out across the tray, a couple of inches apart, and then using my index finger to press them well down into the compost, and then pushing the compost buck over the top. All the trays and pots are then going to be watered thoroughly before putting them in the propagator. It'll be a good few weeks before those beans are ready to plant out, but in the meantime I've got on and set up the wigwam to support them. It's important when you do that you use at least 4 sticks or bamboo canes, that way you should get a fairly good crop. Tie them firmly at the top with garden twine or raffia, and then make sure that each one of the sticks is really well driven into the soil. Ideally, you want to go about 30 centimetres, a foot or so in, so that when you've got a heavy crop of beans and foliage on there, there's no chance it can move around in the wind. I've also done quite a bit to improve the soil. Now, I dug in a lot of manure at the beginning, but I put even more in around the bases of the wigwams. That way I should get a really heavy crop of beans. Now, if you find getting hold of manure difficult, it's essential that you have your own compost bin. So I'll be back towards the end of May giving you some hints on setting up a composting system and hopefully planting out some of the things I sowed today.
Other jobs you can be getting on with this week. As garden bulbs die down, give them a good feed with a high potash fertiliser to make sure of a good show of flowers next year. Snap off the seed pods of tulips to prevent unwanted seed production. Spread a mulch of well-rotted compost or manure around gooseberries, blackcurrants and raspberries to seal in the moisture and keep them growing. And remove the flowers that form on rhubarb plants to encourage the build-up of a strong crown. But if you fancy tackling a bigger project this weekend, Gay Search has come up with a stylish solution for transforming a shady passageway.
Most terrace Victorian cottages have a little shady side passage like this, which does little more than give you access to the garden. And when that garden is minute, it seems such a shame not to make more use of this space. And that is precisely what we're going to do here. Now, this little passageway faces north, so it gets practically no sun. The normal advice in this situation is to paint the walls a light colour just to brighten everything up, but this red brick is so attractive that it would be a shame to cover it in paint. So instead of light and bright, we're going for warm and intimate. There's going to be a simple pergola overhead and lots of shade-loving plants in pots. But one thing I am going to paint, though, is this rather dreary concrete floor. When the weather's fine, apply an even coat of exterior floor paint to a clean, dry surface. Plan the right time to do this because it can take up to 16 hours to dry. When the floor's dry, you can mark out the flower beds. Well, they're not actually flower beds. They're the bays in which we're going to put our pots. And we're marking them out with big, bold zigzags. And what that will do is emphasise the width of this little passageway rather than its length, and so make it feel wider. Draw out the design and protect the areas you don't want to paint by masking outside the pattern. Use spray paint for the zigzag design in a bold colour and leave it to dry. This passageway is 5 metres long, so we're going to build 3 individual pergolas along its length. You'll need 12 larch poles 3 metres in length and 6 poles 1.4 metres in length. Oh, and you'll also need an extra pair of hands. Right, well now we're ready to start building with our pre-stained fencing posts, and we're starting at this end because the little alleyway slopes downwards, so this is the lowest point. Once we get the height of these poles right, then we can measure back and make sure that the others are right too. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that height is right, so thanks, Leon. For comfort, a pergola should be 2.2 metres or over, so cut the first pole to the preferred height, then screw it to the wall, making sure it's absolutely vertical. When all the posts are in position, use the short larch poles to make crossbars. Trim each one to length individually, then drill and secure in place with screws. Complete the pergola by painting 3 different lengths of bamboo canes with bright exterior wood stain. Use multi-purpose exterior glue or tacks hammered in at angles to keep the canes in place. You'll need lots of containers, so to keep the cost down, experiment with ways to decorate black plastic plant pots. For a large container, use a builder's bucket. Push down on the handle to remove it, spray the rim with plastic paint, then wrap around it with split reed, securing it with wire. You can then use this container to create a bog garden. Half fill with ordinary compost and pour in a sachet of carbon, available from aquarium shops. This will prevent the water from turning sour. Take a large leafy bog plant like this Xantideschia. Place it, still in its basket, on top of the compost and fill in around the sides. Finally, fill the container with water to about 2 inches below the rim. Use plenty of pots and tubs of different sizes for maximum effect. Pot up lots of shade-loving plants and then watch your garden grow. We've gone mainly for foliage here because so many foliage plants are good in shade, although there is going to be some colour. The New Guinea hybrid busy lizzies have massive bright red flowers that really will give this a jolt of colour later on in the summer. And the glory vine too, once that's scrambled up there, that'll help this feeling of enclosure. And what I really like about the way the plants have been laid out now is that it does make you wander through this area. You don't just go in a straight line, you do go from side to side, and perhaps that's the reason it does feel so much bigger now. Anyway, I think it looks really terrific, and just give it a few months and see how good it looks then. Well, was I right or was I right? It's not even 3 months since we planted all this up, and it's looking terrific. It's relying mainly on contrasting shapes and textures of foliage, of course, but all the greens are looking so lush. And these little splashes of bright red from the busy lizzies not only make the greens look even greener, they pick up on these lovely warm red brick walls, and so that brings the whole thing together. I must say, I'm really pleased with the way this arum lily, the Xanthideschia, has done. The charcoal we added to the compost when we planted it really has kept the water clear and the compost sweet. All you need to do now, when the plant gets too big for the bucket, is take it out, divide it up, and replant a section of it in fresh compost with a bit more charcoal added. What this narrow passageway proves conclusively is that even in the smallest, most unpromising space, you can, in just a weekend, create a very attractive little garden.
That turned out nicely, didn't it? That's it for this week. There's no Gardener's World next week, but we'll be back with you in 2 weeks' time when hopefully I'll still be enjoying the flowers in my garden. A tulip called Inferno mixed with wallflowers, and boy, it doesn't half smell good. Whatever the weather this weekend, and I hope the sun shines on you. Enjoy your garden. Ta-da.